Hello everyone, Angie here from Find Your Bling, and today I am super excited that you're going to meet another gorgeous Bling Angel, our Bling Angel, Alyson. So how Alyson and I met was about a year and a half ago. About a year and a half ago, and we met on Misty's business at breakfast. Then we met at Beck's Besties. But where we actually really met, I think we even did a one-on-one, Elliot's on stage, on Zoom. It's all Zoom these days. And then we met at Beck's Besties retreat, which was super fun. We became instant friends, and since then, obviously lots of conversations. And Ellie has been to many of the games nights, and now Ellie is running the games nights, which is really, really exciting. Who would imagine all this would happen? So it's all so exciting. So Alyson is incredibly well, an incredibly well trained coach, and she's done so many things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Ellie share with you a little bit about herself and a little bit about what she offers. So Ellie, I'm going to read through the questions today, because that way then I can do the same for everybody. And the first question today is, tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
So just quickly, so I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and I've always sort of had lots of loving family around me. And family means a lot to me. And I came to Melbourne. I sort of grew up in Melbourne. Then we came to Canberra because my ex-husband had a job here. And, as I said, I'd had a really lovely family. I'd had a really lovely life. I used to always had a really boring life because I was always kind of not protected, like overprotected, but, life was just great. I mean, family life was awesome. We didn't have any issues with money or, alcohol or violence or any of that kind of stuff. So I was just so blessed and so lucky. And then I got married, and up until, and then the worst thing that had happened in my life is my sister-in-law had died when she was 37 and I was 28. And she was like a big sister to me because my own big sister was always away from us, sort of living away from Melbourne. And Fatima was my eldest brother's wife, and she died when she was 37. And that was a real blow. That was the worst thing that happened to me in my life. And then, life goes on. And I said, I got married, I had kids, all that kind of stuff. I used to be a teacher in Melbourne, came to Canberra, became a public servant like you do. And, as I said, life went on. And a few years after being here, I got ill. And the reason that came about was because I had this really horrible boss. And I'm the kind of person, you'll never die wondering what I think. I'll always say, and I'm a Libra, so I'm all about
That is so true. I love that about you. It's so good. It's so raw. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, usually I'm diplomatic, but not always. But I do try to be diplomatic. But so, if there's something going on that I don't like, I'd have to have a conversation because I'm a Libra, and it's all about harmony and being happy. And I'm also an optimist, so the glass is always half full. But I found that this man was really hard to deal with. And he had already been part of the organization before he came to us. And he'd already caused heaps of trouble down the corridor. When he came to us, it was just more stuff. And that was just horrible. And the rest of the people in my team, they're all men. And they used to just call him sort of silly names and, laugh it off. And I'd go along with that, and that was fine. But it used to really get at me. And yeah, I thought, you know what? I need to have a conversation. But he hadn't done my appraisal report yet. And I didn't really trust that if I had a conversation before he did my performance review, that he wouldn't sort of take it out on me. So I was waiting till that happened. But in the meantime, all the stress and whatever had caught up with me, and I ended up, having what turned out to be mini strokes. And I was off work for 3 months. And in fact, my GP said I was not allowed to go back and work for this man because that's how much it affected me. Now, to compound that, my beautiful mother, who I had a wonderful relationship with, had died that year. So all this started in February of 2013. My mum had died in Jan. And although I was really, had a really close relationship, our relationship was so good that I was kind of okay with her death in terms of everything that needed to be said had been said. Yeah, there was no, I wish I had or I wish I hadn't, right? I mean, I wasn't the best daughter in the world, but I was the best daughter I could be. So I was at peace for that. My best friend had died the year before. And I didn't really have close friends in Canberra that I could sort of completely lay all my troubles onto. So anyway, so this was sort of happening with work and what have you. And I was kind of quite stressed about it. And then I didn't know what was happening with my health because I didn't get a diagnosis for months. So they took out big ticket items like, brain tumor. And yes, I did have a brain, but there was no tumor on it. That was a joke that my daughter made. So they took out, brain tumor and MS and all those sorts of things, but still nothing for months. So I had huge anxiety, huge overwhelm. I was 53 and I was really scared. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. My son was overseas on his gap year. My daughter was 16 and quite vulnerable, and she adored her grandmother. And we lived out of Canberra, so she was a bit isolated. So there were lots of things happening that just made the whole situation really fraught. And in the middle of all this, my husband of 25 years said he wanted a divorce.
Oh, God.
Well, the marriage hadn't been going well for a few years, but I always thought we'd find our way back to each other. There'd never been anybody else on the side for either him or me or anything like that, but we just grown apart. And as I said, I just thought we'd find our way back to each other. There was nobody to turn to. And as I said, my daughter was in this really vulnerable space, so we didn't tell her. And we were waiting for her brother to come back. And of course, he decided to extend his gap year. So this went on for her, with her not knowing for over a year, which meant he and I were living with this for over a year. We didn't tell any of the family because she's the baby in the family, and everybody, especially her cousins, are very protective. And the last thing I wanted was for somebody to reach out and say, how are you going? Are you going okay? If we hadn't told her. So that was another burden to deal with. So I had nobody to share this with. I couldn't tell my family. I couldn't tell anybody in Canberra because, as I said, I didn't really have close friends, and I didn't have my mum. My best friend had died. So there's really nobody to turn to. So I was in a really low place. Now, as I said, I've always been an optimist, and I was really lucky that, my mum was just a woman ahead of her time. So I grew up with a very strong sense of self and sort of high self-esteem and, really comfortable with who I was. Mind you, I must admit 25 years of marriage had knocked some of the confidence off that. It's kind of funny that, he married who he did and then kind of wanted to change or didn't like parts of it for whatever reason. Anyway, that's another story. But I had lost confidence as well as other things. And there was anxiety, overwhelm, loss of confidence. This now, and I'm all about security. I was 53. We talked about retirement. What was going to happen now if I divorced? I had a 16-year-old to look after. And even though my son was sort of 19, I still felt that, he was sort of going to be dependent on us to an extent. So that was a huge lot of stress. And then suddenly my life was not so boring. I thought, crap, bring back boring, right? I really love boring. So that was really, the start of me realizing that I had to pick myself up, dust myself off, and keep going. And that's how I came upon coaching, because I decided I needed to do some personal development. Went to a weekend where they were doing this stuff. It was from a coaching school, the same one you and I went to. Signed up because I thought I really liked what the guy at the front of the room was doing. I used to do that. I started teaching adults. That's how I started my teaching career. And so I signed up for me, but also for later on. And now that's what I do and I love. So that's pretty much my journey.
Oh, I love that, Ellie. I love how open you were that, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there also that have had these just really smooth lives, I call them. It's just smooth. And people are like, oh, what's the drama? But I find generally somewhere along the path of getting old, something happens where we are in a space of growing. And my goodness, you got a lot of growth in that year.
Sure did.
That is a lot to digest, but obviously you've come out the other side, which is great, which leads me to my next question is, what has been your biggest challenge and how did you get through it, or are you still working on it?
Well, my biggest challenge was actually, as I say, lifting myself up and, dusting myself off and moving forward, and realizing that just because, so just to digress a minute, I'm a bit of a control freak, right? And one of my favorite sayings is from Joseph Campbell, the American writer, who says you have to be willing to give up the life you planned in order to live the life that's waiting for you. And that was my biggest challenge, letting go of what I thought was what my life was going to be. Because, I was fighting not just for my own, not so much happiness or survival, but I was fighting for my children's, future and life. I'd married a man who had 2 children from a previous relationship. And so I was used to having kids who sort of, came to us for Christmas one year and went to their mother the other year. I didn't want that for my children.
Yeah.
What his first wife, who's married again now, so his first wife taught me is that, I would never hate anybody more than I love my children. So I never did, sort of say anything against their father to get them against their father or anything like that. But so getting myself through that sort of period, because I felt betrayal and I felt anxiety and overwhelm and a whole lot of stuff. And so just coming through that was really big for me. And I'm now a much nicer person. I used to be very judgmental, not so much anymore. So I've become a much nicer person, much more mellow. And what I've really learned is that you really need to move on, to forgive and move on.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you teach very well too, is forgiveness. And it's amazing when you start to put the jigsaw back together. Does that make sense? Because the jigsaw we started with might have been round, but now it turns into a triangle or a square. So I totally get that. I totally get that, not being attached to the outcome anymore, because it's very hard when you have decided that this is what my life will look like. We're going to hold hands, we're going to have our grandchildren together, and all of that just falls apart. So it's a big journey. It's a really big journey. Yeah, that's good, Ellie. Thank you for sharing that. Your next question is, what are you most passionate about right now?
Well, I'm really passionate about helping women, or anybody really, excuse me, to be comfortable in their own skin. And as I say, I'm a self-love mentor and a self-love coach, because loving yourself, to me, really is the secret of success to life. Anything you do in life, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, you're not perfect, but I like you. What's more, I love you. I respect you. That to me is just gold. That's the key to living a good life.
Ooh, I love that. That's what you're very passionate about at the moment, helping people create a good life, because that's something that you've been able to achieve. And you are married again, is that right? Yep.
No, I'm not married again, but I do
you
have
live together.
a partner. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought you were married again, but still, that's the same. You've been together for quite a while.
Living in sin.
Oh, fun. Love it. That's so great. Okay, Ellie, what is one thing that you could share with women right now to help them? Like, what is your little golden nugget that you would love to share that you believe was something that landed in your life that you would like to pass on?
Well, me, Angela, I can never just stick to one thing. I've always got lots of things.
Yeah, that's good. Love it. Tell us a couple.
Well, okay, a couple of things is really, just be kind to yourself and realize that you're not perfect.
Be kind.
You're beautiful just the way you are.
Yeah.
Accept yourself, warts and all.
Yeah. That is a very nice nugget of gold. Yeah. And how do you think the best way to do that for people is?
Well, so one of the things I do that in my self-love courses that I teach is getting people to list down their strengths and their weaknesses, and we turn their weaknesses into strengths, because strengths are usually KSA, knowledge, skills, attitudes, and you can learn those and you can get better at those. I mean, you're only a good pianist because you've learned and you've practiced, right? You're a good sports person, even though you might be born a talented sports person. If you don't practice, you're going to be rubbish. So, practice, learning, that's all awesome stuff that can make your weaknesses into strengths. And an attitude, if you love somebody who's generous or you want to be generous, practice generosity. You don't have to give things to be generous. You can give kind words. You can give your time. You can give, a whole lot of other things. You can give appreciation. So, you can turn your weaknesses into strengths. And the same way with your negative beliefs about yourself. If you kind of look at, I believe on this, well, why? Let's look into it a bit further. And you'll actually find that there's a reason that maybe doesn't make sense. So that's one of the things. And the other thing that I found through my marriage or my divorce is gratitude. And actually gratitude is the first step, because gratitude got me to forgiveness. And forgiveness is really my message, right? So my daughter had a few issues with her father even before the divorce. And I'd sort of say to her, Katie, because it was all about, my kids and their father, the relationship, not me, and their father's relationship. So I'd say, Katie, you need to actually look at all the things that he was, all the things that he did, rather than everything he didn't. As I said, I'm very much an optimist. I'm the Pollyanna. So let's look at what the glass is half full, right? So in getting her to look at all the things that her father was instead of what he wasn't, made me grateful for all the things I had with him and all the things we had in our life. And through that, I came to forgiveness. Because as it turned out, he did, meet up with his ex-fiancée, and that's why he left, which is why I felt betrayal. And it had never been an issue before, which is why it really hurt deep. And so that took a lot of forgiveness. And the other part with forgiveness is you need to forgive yourself, because we all do what we can with what we have at the time, whether it's our parents, whether it's our partners, whether it's, our bosses, whatever it is, we do the best we can with what we have. So forgive yourself, because you've only done the best you can with what you have.
I think people are going to need to read. Yeah, I was going to say, I think people need to rewatch that bit. There's a lot of good nuggets in there, Ellie. Lots of good nuggets. I love that. And all incredibly good advice. I love that. That was a gift. Thank you. We are now up to the moment where we do the Bling Quickies. Now, the Bling Quickies, I'm going to ask you a question, and then after that, I'd love you to share. And this is so that people can really get to know a little bit more about you. So I'm going to start with number one. If you could eat only one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, my goodness, Ange, I have no idea. I'm currently doing an eating regime to get sort of healthy and lose some weight. And I'm finding it really hard to just stick to a particular plan, because at the moment I'm not allowed to eat fruit, and I love fruit. So I think my ideal meal would have to be something that had both savory and sweet in it, to be able to kind of, to meet both those needs, because I can't just do the one thing. So I don't know. And it can't be a salad, because that's just not enough. So I haven't really any idea what my one meal forever would be.
All right. Well, you definitely know it's something savory and something fruity.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. That's nice. Okay. It's probably because you just love all food too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. The next one is, what is your favourite book you've ever read?
Oh, me, I can never just choose one. So there are many. The first book that got me onto this whole personal development thing was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And I love that. And I also still go back to it, especially the stuff at the back about your body and, what, if you've got ailments, what that means, and the affirmations. After that, I really love Susan Jeffers' You Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That I really, really love that one. And another one I've read recently, which also resonates, is James Clear's Atomic Habits. So if you want to sort of learn some habits or break some habits, it's an awesome one to do. So sorry, that's 3, not 1.
I know it's 3, but it's so fantastic. It's okay. They're all good reads. They're good advice. And, of course, Louise Hay would be definitely my favourite. I think she just seems to be at that point where you're at a pivotal point where your world is falling apart, and someone gives you the book, and it became my Bible. My first one actually fell apart. It just fell apart because I've read it so much. Because you're just on that journey of healing. She's very soothing.
Yeah. And her own story is amazing. I don't know how many copies I have. My first one, I think I lent to somebody, and I don't know if I've got it back. And then I bought multiples, and I keep either giving them away or lending them out. Yeah, I love it.
Ellie, me too. All right, Ellie, what makes you laugh?
Pretty much anything. I've got a bit of a weird sense of humor. So one of the things my sister and I used to do when we were traveling together was we'd people watch. And then we'd make up stories about each other, about these people as they're going past. I mean, I was 18, she was 30, so we were growing up, but we'd act like kids. So pretty much anything makes me laugh. Just good company. I feel happy in good company. Yeah.
Good company and just having a laugh at life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love clever humour.
Yeah, that's very good. You'd like the Melbourne Comedy Festival. That's brilliant. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, that's good, Ellie. And your next question is, what song sums you up the best at the moment?
Oh, again, being an optimist, there are a couple. So one song I've always loved from the time I was a kid was Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World.
Oh, yeah.
And I still love that. Plus, he's got such a gorgeous voice. And my aunt, when I was little, used to look after him. So I spent a lot of time with my aunt. And she used to sing Blue Skies to me. Again, that's an old song. It was revived by Willie Harris, I think, in the 70s or 80s. The Blue Skies, Smiling at Me. So that's another optimistic one that I really love.
Well, that sounds nice. I don't think I know that. Maybe if I hear it, I'll know it, but I don't think I know that one. But I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. And I've got such a terrible voice, I would just absolutely ruin it. So I'm not going to do that.
No, I actually, all the angels, I'd love them to put the link of their favourite song in there, because I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear the ones that they either think they don't know and then hear it and they do know, or invite them into another song, that they didn't know before.
Yeah.
Nice. And our last question today, Elle, is what is your specialty as a Bling Angel?
So as a Bling Angel, my specialty is personal empowerment and self-love.
It is, isn't it? And you do that in so many ways. So that is definitely self-love. I think we all think of you as self-care, self-love, and getting all those lovely rituals together that really takes you on a beautiful healing journey. So that's good. Well, I would like to thank you all for joining us today, and I hope that you loved our introduction to the beautiful Alyson, our Bling Angel of Self-Love. Know that you can reach out to her anytime. If you're in a space and you're not quite sure how to get out, Elle is the girl that can take you to love and above. So until next time, we'll see you all later. Bye now.
Yeah.